Hi, this is Brad Linder with Liliputing, and this is the GPD Win 3, which is a handheld gaming device that looks sort of like a Nintendo Switch with a screen in the middle and game controllers on the sides, but it's in fact a full-fledged Windows PC with a Thunderbolt 4 port on the bottom, USB and headset jacks on the top, and under the hood it is powered by an Intel Tiger Lake processor with Intel Iris Xe graphics, ships with Windows 10 software. It's available for pre-order through an Indiegogo crowdfunding campaign for $7.99 and up, and you can find a link in the description of this video. And this is a pre-production prototype that GPD sent me for testing purposes. Now, this is the latest in a line of mini gaming PCs from GPD. Previously, they've opened like laptops in a clamshell style design to reveal a keyboard below that you can use with your fingers or type with 10 fingers on larger models. This is the first with a new slider style design that reveals this capacitive touch keyboard beneath it. This is a design that's sort of borrowed from Sony's old VAIO UX style UMPC or Ultra Mobile PC devices. It's good enough for maybe just entering a quick password or username or a little bit of text at a time, but it's kind of problematic for large amounts of text. And that's why this is really first and foremost a gaming computer that is meant for gaming on the go. But you can use it for other things as well because it is a full-fledged Windows PC. So let's go ahead and turn it on and I'll show you around. So that power button is on the top along with volume buttons. For some reason, it's volume up, volume down instead of doing left and right the way you would expect it to be. We've got a fingerprint sensor here in the bottom corner in a place that makes perfect sense for using your thumb, although you could register any finger. And then on the sides, we've got analog sticks, X, Y, A, and B buttons, select and start, Xbox button, and this PlayStation Vita style D-pad, which people who know gaming a lot better than I do say is excellent. There's also this switch here that doesn't work right now, but in the future you'll be able to toggle it to use the D-pad controllers as mouse controls, and there's a micro SD card slot. As I mentioned on the bottom, we've got this Thunderbolt port, so you can plug in accessories or the charger, and it comes with a 65-watt power adapter. The final version might be a little bit smaller than this. I'm not sure. This might just be a prototype, but this is the power adapter it came with, and a USB cable. We've got downward firing speakers, which are not stellar, but they exist. We've got analog L2 and R2 trigger buttons, and these sort of clicky L1 and R1. Volume and power, headset, exhaust, and intake fan, and these programmable extra buttons, which, again, this is a prototype, and they're not programmable just yet, but that's what you've got. The screen is a 5.5-inch 1280 by 720 pixel screen, which honestly is a little bit ultra sharp, I think, and I'm just going to dim it a little bit so it looks better here on camera. It's kind of hard to make everything out, and at only 720 pixels large, when you're doing certain things, when I installed certain applications, for instance, I noticed that the accept, the OK or the next button would be below the bottom of the screen. So one thing you can do about that is move this way, or of course you can go into the settings for the display, and you can change it from landscape to portrait mode if that's something that makes sense. It doesn't support automatic screen rotation, and really it's the sort of device that doesn't make a lot of sense to hold this way anyway. If you wanted to, you could also go into advanced scaling and adjust the sort of scaling options there. So now I'm going to switch to 150% scaling, and now everything's just a little bit easier to see. So that is an option that you have as well. Now, as I mentioned, this is a prototype, and so we've got a little bit of light bleed here in this gap under the keyboard. I'm hoping that's an issue that gets resolved by the time these are shipping to customers, but I did want to point it out here. My biggest complaint about this computer overall, though, is definitely the keyboard. So let's go ahead and take a look at that before we get to gaming, because as I mentioned, gaming is where this thing really excels, and it's probably the fastest little gaming PC that I've used to date. But when it comes to using it for anything other than gaming, there's a few problems with this keyboard. One is the control, shift, tab function, these sort of special keys are all on the left, and the way that I'm holding this, you'll notice, it's I sort of have to move really far in order to get over to these other keys. So if I wanted to do something like Control C, you know, I sort of have to stretch pretty far to get there, or Shift W, then it's kind of a stretch. So basic typing is fine, but not great. With your thumbs, you could, of course, just come in and do 1 or 2 finger typing this way. And I actually almost find that to be it's more accurate generally. You get a little bit of haptic feedback, but there's no, basically it vibrates when you touch a button, but it doesn't click in any way. So you either have to really get used to where these keys are, or look at the keyboard as you're typing, I think. And my biggest problem is that the Shift key is just really hard. Oh, that was the first time. And look at that, I'm getting the A. Normally I have difficulty when I'm entering email addresses because I have a hard time getting the Shift to register for capital letters. Right now it seems to be working better than usual. But when you want to capitalize. So you can get a sense of how painful the typing experience is. It's really not ideal. But again, if you're just entering usernames, passwords, and so on, then it's not so bad. It is a general purpose computer, so in addition to gaming, if you wanted to, you could use it for watching videos, viewing documents, if not necessarily editing them, and so forth.
Grammarly does more than catch errors. With Grammarly, you can find... Hi, this is Brad Linder with Linux Smartphones, and this is a PinePhone smartphone running Manjaro ARM Plasma Mobile Beta 1, which was released on December. Pre-order the...
So it is, you know, a fully functional PC that can run just about any PC application. It ships with Windows. I've tried loading Ubuntu onto it, and it's a little bit problematic. The touchscreen doesn't seem to work. Video plays, but audio is not audible, and I can't even manually rotate the screen in Ubuntu. So that might take a little bit of sort of finagling to get Linux up and running, but theoretically, you should be able to run other operating systems as well. But now let's get into what this device is really for, and that would be gaming. So the first thing I'm going to show you is this game called Steep, which if you've checked out some of my other videos, it's one of the more demanding games that I own. On sort of low-spec hardware, it tends to run well below 30 frames per second, making it difficult to actually play. But on this device, it's definitely playable. So hopefully it loads up soon. Let's see, is there any of the specs that I didn't mention? It's got a 44 watt-hour battery that... Not sure what's happening here. 44 watt-hour battery that under some circumstances should be able to last you for 6+ hours if you're playing light games, or... let's try this way. If you're playing lightweight games or watching videos or doing other things. If you're playing more CPU-intensive or resource-intensive titles like... Come on. I ran the Heaven benchmark, which is not frame rate capped and is a pretty demanding benchmark. It only ran for about an hour and 15 minutes before the battery died out. So that's your worst case scenario. It's going to vary, obviously, depending on the game that you're running. The case is ABS plastic and magnesium alloy. It's available in black, generally speaking, but the version that's available through crowdfunding, there's also going to be a silver model. The whole thing weighs a little bit more than 1.2 pounds, measures about 1.1 inches thick, making it, you know, thicker than something like a Nintendo Switch, but still, you know, it is small enough that I can fit it into the pocket of a pair of jeans. It's going to take a moment here for the game to load, but... As I mentioned, when I've tried this on other devices with less powerful hardware, but sort of designed to be mobile gaming devices, I've struggled to get 30 frames per second. Here you can see we're at 60. Now it dropped below 30, but we're in the loading screen, but we're doing pretty well here. And now we're at about 37, 36, 38 frames per second, 40, 43. 44. and I should probably pay attention to what I'm doing. Let's try that again. $48. Drop down to 39 there for a second. But still, it's very playable. So this is with the graphics options sort of set at their highest level on the game's steep. If you were playing games that work with the D-pads instead of the analog sticks, you might want to change your grip. So I wasn't using the shoulder buttons there, but here you can sort of see I'm holding it in a way that maybe my pinkies are down at the bottom. But if I wanted to play a game like, let's say, Cave Story, that I can use with the D-pad, I believe. And I'll still use that with this. Well, let's prove my point by going and trying Celeste instead. Because that I'm pretty sure you use with the D-pad. Here we go. Now I can sort of shift my grip on it. It's a little bit more comfortable to use this way because I don't necessarily need to reach up there. That said, I'm at a part of the game that I haven't quite mastered yet, so I'm going to just show you what it looks like when I die for the most part. I'm going to need to jump and then... No. Well, you get the idea of what the controllers look like anyway. There we go. So I may have mentioned this before, but I'm not a very serious gamer. I swear I did get this far, at least previously. All right, you get the idea. So gaming is really where I think this device is going to excel. And as I mentioned, sort of worst case scenario with a 44 watt-hour battery, I think you're going to be able to get at least an hour and a half of gameplay. And that's without capping frame rates. That's with sort of everything running at its highest CPU consumption and so forth. On this particular model, you can go into the BIOS settings and adjust the TDP values, so you can actually lower the voltage if you're playing less demanding games and don't necessarily and want to prioritize battery life and don't necessarily need to sort of go beyond that. But according to the Fox, who's also done a series of videos on this little device, it can get maybe up to 6 hours of battery life, depending on the games that you're playing. And sort of more intermediate games, I think 3 to 4 hours is fairly reasonable as an expectation. So that is a quick look, sort of first look at the GPD Win 3. It's a very promising device for gaming. It's probably not the best option if you're looking for a handheld computer that requires sort of typing. I think it's not the perfect form factor if you're looking for a tablet. It's not the perfect form factor if you're looking for a productivity machine. It's obviously designed first and foremost for gaming. I think with a physical keyboard that actually had clicky keys, it could be a little bit more versatile. But I am told that the reason that GPT chose to go with the capacitive keyboard is so that they could keep the battery as large as possible without making this significantly thicker than it already is. I should probably also mention that the fan is audible. It's clearly not a fanless device. We've got this large intake vent here on the back. If you're playing games with the volume turned up to a reasonable level, it might not be bothersome. And I think, gamers are a little bit less concerned about a little bit of fan noise than some other people. This isn't the sort of device that you're going to use in a quiet room silently and not disturb people around you because you might want to hear what's going on. But even if you plug in headphones, other people might hear that fan sort of whir up. Now, I keep saying it's not the sort of device that you're going to use for productivity purposes on the go, but again, it is going to be available with an optional docking station accessory, and that'll add HDMI output, Ethernet, a couple of extra USB ports, and under those circumstances, I think it is a device that you could consider using as almost like a desktop computer that you can just grab and go and use as a gaming device and then come back and sort of dock. It's got the hardware of a decent laptop, really, just stuffed into a smaller case with a smaller screen and designed to be a little bit more pocketable. It's got dual heat pipes underneath. It's got active fan, and overall, I think it's got a lot going for it. It is one of the more interesting devices that I've tried in the last couple of years. As a non-gamer, I'm not necessarily sure that I am the target audience, but I am impressed at what GPD has been able to achieve here, and I'd be really curious to see what would happen if they decided to put out a non-gaming version of this device that had a better keyboard and a similar form factor, allowing you to sort of have that touchscreen display when you want it, a physical keyboard when you want it, and the controllers wouldn't necessarily be as integral. Now, having the controllers permanently put on here definitely makes it look like a device that's designed for gaming, but it also gives you a very sort of stable, sturdy grip. If you had detachable controllers like some devices do, they'd have to design a mechanism like Nintendo's that makes sure that they don't feel wobbly in any way. So that is a first look and an overview of the GPD Win 3 with the prototype that was sent to me for testing purposes. You can find more details, including some benchmark results at lilliputiting.com. And after I've had a little bit more time to test it, I might do some updates showing you more details about usage. But stay tuned to our YouTube channel or check out Lilliputing for more details. This is Brad Linder with lilliputing.com.